Starred UL, the true final boss of the Battle Cats. Once you're here, you know you're at the end game. Considered by many to be too difficult or too tedious to ever be worth doing, I would say that they are definitely not as bad as they were on release, and that appropriate power creep has arrived to make it doable for the average player. All in all, you should still expect a very challenging adventure as you make your way through the same old UL stages buffed to ridiculous magnifications. Not every stage will be as difficult as another, some will be complete jokes and others will have you question who should be fired from Ponos. But at the end of the day, you just can't ignore the great rewards of 4,350 cat food total and 2 platinum tickets for clearing 2 and 3 star UL. Well, maybe you can't ignore that, but we all know that Edie's true form is likely to come out after 4 star UL ends, so it's best to get ready for that. This video will be split up into sections. Timestamps are provided here and in the description if you want to skip to a specific part. Starred UL is the magnified versions of existing Uncanny Legends subchapters, which are unlocked individually per chapter if the previous star difficulty is completed. This goes up to 4 stars, with the first 2 increasing the magnification of enemies, and the last one going back to normal magnifications but adding on a restriction of special and rare only. These stage buffs start higher early and become lower the farther you are in UL, with the earliest 3-star subchapter having enemies with double HP and damage, decreasing all the way to just a 1.2 times multiplier for the last UL subchapter. This sounds scary, and it definitely is, as the enemies here have monstrous levels of HP and damage, meaning you will need adequate units and strategy to defeat them. When should you start playing Starred UL? Well, I'd recommend to only start doing it after you finish 1 star or the baseline Uncanny Legends, as clearing that gives you powerful units and true forms which help a lot for the starred stages. As for the order, the 2 most common ways are to clear all of 2 star, then all of 3 star, and then 4 star, or to do all star difficulties for a single chapter at a time. The first method allows you to claim the platinum ticket quest faster, and allows you to not have to re-grind a stage you dislike in another star difficulty right after. While the second option allows you to play the easier subchapters or the ones you like before the harder or more annoying ones. Most people do a mix of both, so I'd recommend for you to change between the 2 to do what's most enjoyable. And remember, Starred UL is incredibly long and tedious at times, so it can be a pretty big mental block to get through. I'd recommend not grinding out heavy sessions and to instead space it out and play a few stages or a subchapter every now and then. Well, unless you like grinding out clears in this game a lot, then go ahead. Just always remember to take a break if you aren't feeling up to the task at hand. Now, let's get into the preparation guide. At the point of the game you've reached Starred UL, I'm pretty sure you have decent enough understanding of the meta units and the best options in the game. So I'll make it brief on what units are mentioned and just give 3 helpful tips towards what units you should have. The first thing you should make sure is that you have good generalist units that work on the vast majority of stages. The best of these units are your top priority to upgrade, such as Master Ural, Can, Doron, Courier, Slime, and more. For Ubers, these would be the top meta Ubers like Dazzly, the Phonos, and Balrog, as well as somewhat weaker but still really strong Ubers like Ganesha, Dahlia-san, Sirius, Kazli, Yukimura, and more. Note that support options like Rock, Cyberpunk, and Deadeye, which are not too level reliant, don't have to be upgraded too much, and the same goes for crowd control support Ubers like Mitama or Kronos. Having these units at high level like 50 or higher for the stat-based ones makes your life a whole lot easier, as you have already covered the vast majority of stages in Starred UL with just these units alone. Alongside generalist units, you should also have counters to specific enemy traits. Make sure you have adequate units to counter all the relevant enemies from each trait. Stuff like Pizza for black enemies, Courier and Row for red enemies, Hitman for traitless, and so on will give you an easy answer to these enemies if they appear on certain stages. Because non-Uber units tend to leave a lot of gaps in what they counter well, a lot of Ubers can be valuable to fill in these gaps. For example, Having a strong damage-based anti-angel uber can be helpful, since non-uber mainly relies on Ramen to tank in either short-ranged crowd control or frail ranged attackers to beat them. Your counters also don't have to directly have an ability to beat the enemy of the same trait. For example, Dahlia-san doesn't target red, but is still a great counter to Professor A. Note that if you do spot a gap in your roster for countering a specific niche of enemy, that's okay as long as you can beat all the relevant stages with this enemy. This is where the third part comes in, which is making sure you have proper counters to specific difficult stages. I won't name them here, but instead name them during the problematic stages section of the video. Some stages like Kuala Lumpur don't really have the most straightforward counters, so you'll have to single these out and make sure you have some way to deal with them. Remember that if you still have some units from here but still want to play Stardew well, you can simply beat the stages that your roster of units enables you to and skip the ones you can't, coming back later when you have the proper counters. For example, if I haven't unlocked Hitman yet, I could skip In the Sleeping Forest and DNA Plantation for now, as I can't clear Glass Slippers or Clone Farmers yet. Once I get Hitman, I can come back and beat these stages without the same trouble. With these tips on preparation, you should be able to understand what you need to beat the majority of 3-star UL. Using skills you have already established from making it this far in the game alongside higher levels should be enough to beat stages without much problems, especially if you have strong Ubers to help you. However, there are still some tricky stages in particular that I've decided to bring note to in case they wall you off in particular. Before we start getting into them, I would recommend to try playing them yourself without help, since that's where some of the fun of this game comes from. Especially since you know what's in the stage due to clearing it before, most of these stages here won't be a problem for most people. But if you do get stuck and simply don't know what to do about a hard-starred stage, that's what this section in the video is for. I'll go in order from earliest to latest, and I'll describe the usual strategy alongside some recommendations on how to beat them. This might not cover every hard stage in Stardew Valley, but it will cover a good amount of them. Timestamps will also be in the description for these stages. Now, let's begin. Pasta Desert. Bring long-ranged or piercing attackers to damage Master A here. It's important to counter the peons here, so bring Bearcat for Zorako, and mid-ranged attackers like Pizza work well against the Relic Doges. Stack up Cyberpunks on the boss and it shouldn't be too bad. Palcatio Waters, a pretty nasty stage with steroided enemies. You're just gonna want to answer both the Red and Angel trait very well here. Crowd control options like Juliet, Sanzo, iCat, and Catly are great for controlling the enemies, and damager options like Mushroom Courier and Time Traveler work well to knock back the enemies and kill them before they stack up too much. Cyberpunk is also pretty good here, and Ramen and Rock are the best meat shields for the stage. For Ubers, your best anti-red and anti-angels will be fantastic here. Panic Tower. You can actually cheese this one with Bahamut due to enemy limit. If it's too inconsistent for you, bring your best Cadaver Bear answers, and most anti-zombie Ubers should be able to shut the stage down. Lady in the Clink. This stage is pretty nasty to play normally, so I'd opt for a cheese strat here. Stack up ducks on the start off and use Godcat to push them to a base, where you will use Golfers to destroy them before the boss spawns. You can use Breaker Blast to make God miss, enabling the ducks to live for longer and not die during the base killing phase. I wouldn't recommend trying this stage normally unless you have really good Uber options that beat it well. If the cheese isn't working well and you don't have the proper Ubers, you can just cyberstack it. No Hope Ranch. You can cheese this one as well. Bring Pizza to deal with starting Gory Blacks, then rush the base and Doran at the right time to knock back and stun the first Emost. You should be able to take down the base with your rusher units then. If you don't want to waste a Rich Cat on that, just bring your anti-Emost options like Master Ural and Luza, and you should be fine doing it normally. Primitive Souls. What was once the hardest stage in the game is now pretty doable with Power Creep. The start off is the nastiest part, but make sure to use Fishman on the Moose, Courier and Slime on the Ginger Snaches, and Pizza or Box Cats on the Dark Otters. For the Dogus, use your anti-relic legends like Nala, Edie, Doran, and Ural to take them out. Make sure you manage your money well, and remember that if you do kill a Dogumaru, you get a ton of cash back. Total Myopia. It's pretty easy, just stall to start off with meat shields like Future and Hoopcat for freezing them, then stack LD or wave options like Nulla, Masked Hermit, or Dark Laser, and once you hit the base, the Lorises should be dealt with easily. Handle the rest of the meadows with your usual anti-metal answers and you should be golden. Gas-powered birds. This stage sucks, so I'd recommend rushing it. Use Cat Typhoon to deal with the metal hippos, then use Bahamut to take out the base, and cannon combos to be able to Breaker Blast back the Owl Bros from killing him. If that's too inconsistent, you can try to take the stage head on with strong anti-angel Ubers, or use ranged answers like Time Traveler and Farm Boy for the Winged Piggy, and Curry, Soba, or Aku Researcher for the metals. Poison Bog Cure. Slime and Rock combos destroy this stage hard. You want to bring Cyberpunk here and stall everything good while using chipper units to deal the majority of your damage, like Doron and Bullet Train. If you have long-ranged Ubers, you can bring them here and they will do amazingly. Unauthorized Breathing. Make sure to Holy Blast the Zangru waves when you can, and your standard anti-zombie options like Shigong, Housewife, and Chief should assist you in dealing with the rest. You can bring non-zombie killer DPS options for support like Pizza or Euro as well. Almost any anti-zombie Uber is going to destroy this stage really hard as well, so it shouldn't be too problematic. Bare Fangs at the Throne. Master Euro's Relic Curse pretty much disables Otham's Curse, allowing your Ramen to freely tank the whole stage. Pair that with Surge Immune or strong Saint Dober counters and it should be easy. Joran is also great for knocking back the Otham. Protein Cartel. This stage sucks pretty badly if you don't have a Toxic Immune Uber or a long-ranged high damage one, so I'd recommend cheesing it. Deploy Godcat and protect him with fast meat shields like Manic Mohawk, Manic Eraser, and Rock, and he will constantly knock back the gobbles and kill the base. You can also bring other high DPS options to assist in knocking back the gobbles. Curry Comet. Cyberstack. That's how you beat this one. Have fun. Glass Slippers. Oh boy, this is an infamous one. You can Bahamut chain the starting Ursa Major with Soap and Bahamut, but I'd really recommend to just use an anti-alien Uber to delete Ursa Major. After that, use Hitman or other anti-white Ubers to dispose of the Arost while making sure to wave block the waves from the Doge base with Super Cat. Haniwa is also great here as he tanks Arost for cheap price. It's pretty inconsistent if you try the Bahamut chaining route, but you'll get it eventually. It's one of the hardest stages at Stardew Valley, so don't get discouraged if you end up losing a fair bit. Happily Ever After. Kill Loris fast using Edie, then chip the whole stage down using long-range sniper units like Cyberpunk, and chip units like Doron and Bullet Train. Make sure you have answers to the occasional Surreal like Can, Dancer, and Slime. The rest of your lineup aside from meat shields should be anti-white crowd control, like Tourist and Glass Cat. Defaced Tombstone. Bring all the piercing damage you can, like Housewife, Luza, Master Euro, and Masked Hermit, and then try to keep juggling Puffington while chipping down Cadaver Bear. Holy Blast is great for the initial boss wave, and if you stall to start off with Master Euro, you can actually almost get 2 of them by the time you reach the base. As for Ubers, bring your best Cadaver Bear counters and he should go down easily. The Belated Priest. Euro and Luza should pretty much just destroy the stage. Not much else to say for this one, but general high range DPS is great for taking out the Emost. Make sure you have an answer to clean up Professor A as well, whether that be Row, Cyberpunk, or some other counter. Choir Battle. Rush the first Calamari using Bahamut and pray that she doesn't weaken him. If he does, you can just force close and retry the stage. After that, lure Winged Piggy and try to subdue him with crowd control units like Farm Boy, Easter Egg, and Juliet, plus high damage units like Mushroom and Time Traveler. If you don't have these options, just stall it with Ramen and bring high DPS ranged options. Once you kill Winged Piggy, just rush the base again and you will win. Adventurer's Journal. This stage is actually pretty tricky. You're going to want to Holy Blast the first and third Zeal waves and bring high DPS ranged options like Master Euro and Talented LKD. The Zeals themselves can be answered with Housewife and Chief Cat. If you have a 9+10 Cat Cannon, you can Holy Blast all 3 Zeal waves and this stage becomes an absolute joke. Chapel Transfer. Rush the stage using money combos and Awaken Bahamut alongside Seafarer and optionally Racket Cat. Use the Breaker Blast and Rocks to protect Bahamut, as well as the Soap plus Fried Chicken combo if you have it. If you don't want to, you can brute force it with many of the anti-alien and anti-wave options we have. Best Ubers here are anti-alien ones, preferably with warp immune and ranged wave blockers. Iron Sand Beach. Rush this stage using money combos, Courier, Manic Lion, Green Shell, and Bahamut. I wouldn't recommend playing it normally since it's quite a difficult stage that way. Kuala Lumpur. Bring Surrel answers like pizza or slapsticks, and then try to conserve cash while killing off the Surrels. And if you have good Rusher or LD Ubers, you can actually opt to rush down and kill Kamel fast. If not, just stall out the stage until Surrels are gone, and your meat shields should be enough to stall the Kamel and Reynard until you kill them, as long as you brought Rock. Learn to Hate. Rush this stage as well since it's terrible to play normally. You can use Green Shell, Bullet Train, Egg Pod, Courier, and Hitman to take out the base fast enough to skip the rest of the stage. This is only recommended if you don't have strong Ubers, otherwise go use your anti-traitless or high DPS ranged attackers to kill the initial Hnas and then take care of Mina. Cleanup is pretty self-explanatory after that. Fisherman on Strike. Make sure to use shield-piercing units like Supercar or Aku Researcher for the bears, and use Edie for the Puffingtons. Not much else, this stage is pretty simple. Hell's Crater. Cyberpunk alongside Fiends is a great way to keep back Medusan from killing your units while dealing with Dreadbore. If you want the stage over fast, use either Lil Dark or Weed Whacker talents to freeze Medusan permanently and take her out before Dreadbore for a cheese strat. Fire Kingdom Dynamite. Bring many low-cost meat shields, Rock, Cyberpunk, and Aku Researcher, plus ranged attackers, and you should have it smooth sailing. Burning Sunset. Belly Dancer alongside Master Ural and other Surge Immune attackers are great for shutting down this one. Courier also does a good amount of damage to red energy, so bring him as well. Anti-Surge or Anti-Red or Aku Ubers are great here. Speechless Tongues. Cheese this one, since playing normally sucks. Use Soapcat, Seafarer, and Bahamut to rush the base, with Fishman as well helping to destroy Spacefish Jones. It might not work 100% of the time, but you get it within a few tries at most. Ubers like Blanca or Thunderjet can help with cheesing, otherwise anti-zombie Ubers are great with dealing with the Zangaroos normally. Ashes just ahead. You can Cyber Deadeye stack this one and use all the Surge Immune meat shields and long-range units to kill the red energies. If you don't want to deal with all this, you can cheese it with Godcat and Gato Amigo. Roast meat, not cities. Bring proper answers to every one of the threats here alongside Cyberpunk and Rock for support. In non-Uber units, these would be Seafarer and Hitman for the Bun Bun and Arost, while the other three enemies in this stage can simply be stalled and chipped down with units like Doron and Bullet Train. Retreat of the Living Dead. Bring your best anti-zombie Ubers to deal with these enemies. If you don't have many, Housewife and Chief are great for the zombies, and Cadaver Bear still works on the zappies. Just make sure to manage your money well, and it should go decently fine. Note that Golemfish only curses the first LD area within his attack. Anything that gets hit by the second or third hit will not be cursed. Doran is also great for pushing back Golemfish. Full Stop Valley. Spam your long distance attackers like Housewife, Pizza, Ural, and Luza to deal with the backline in this stage. These also have trait specific abilities to make them more effective. Rock and Cyberpunk are great for defense here as well, and Holy Blast is what you want to run to deal with Cadaver Bear. Most strong specialist Ubers will be great here, whether anti-black, relic zombie, or floating. Soul in the Idol. Use Metal Hippos as a stepping stone and chip down the Dogus using Masked Hermit, Dark Laser, and Nala. Use regular attackers to also deal with Aku Gories. For Ubers, anything with a long pierce or range that can snipe the Dogus is good. Birth of True Man. Bring your strongest rusher options in anti-behemoth or relic answers like Nala, Ural, Doron, Edie, Courier, Can, Fishman, and Eggpod. Then unleash them all to kill Behemoth Luza as fast as possible. If he doesn't die during the initial rush, conservatively spam them away to easily destroy everything in the stage. If you need to make things easier, you can deplete all the start off Owlbros and Relic Doges by stalling the start off for about 11 minutes. And finally, Revival of Origin. UL true forms like Nala and Dogu can deal with peons extremely well while stalling the boss, and make sure to bring proper counters to them with fast cooldown like Can, Courier, Slime, Bullet Train, and or Fishman. Hitman is great at taking out Boar Jr. due to his LD, just make sure to time rocks with him to keep him there. Corn is also a fantastic meat shield here and pretty much negates most of the pushing power from the Sir Rel waves. You can use Doron on whichever peon wave you struggle with more, either the Sir Rel waves or the Boar Jr. waves. As for Ubers, I actually think most of the non-Uber options are the best units to bring for this stage, though certain few like Balrog and Yukimura for Boar Jr. are fantastic picks as well. And that's pretty much all the hard stages I wanted to cover for 3-star UL. If you're looking for more in-depth stage or subchapter guides for starred UL, I recommend checking out the channels SilumanTomcat, Kartoffel, and Catbattles COOL. It shouldn't be as bad as I might have made it sound, especially since your Ubers should be able to stomp most of it, if not all of these stages. But just in case you are missing some, know that the non-Uber solutions are still relatively straightforward. Now you might be wondering, what about 4-star UL? Well, the thing is that because you are actually fighting enemies with the same magnifications as 1-star, 4-star UL isn't that much different from 1-star UL. Sure, your Uber carry won't work here anymore, but extremely strong 4-star units like Ural, Rock, and Courier, as well as other special legends, talented special cats, and boosted rare gacha cats can pretty much destroy most stages without much of a problem. The usual idea for how to clear a stage pretty much remains the same, and you've cleared the stage 3 different times up to this point, so it shouldn't be too hard to come up with a strategy on your own. I really haven't seen many people struggle with 4-star UL, so I'm not putting too much here, but if something troubles you, just look back to see what unit counters you used to beat the stage when you used Ubers. And that's pretty much it for this guide. I hope you got something out of it, whether it being the answer to a specific stage, or more knowledge on how to approach it as a whole. Thanks for watching, and remember everyone, when all else fails, just research Rock, Cyber Deadeye, and Master Ural. Okay, not really, but it kinda does work sometimes. Later, everyone.